Hey guys, welcome back to another Scuderia car parts video. Today we're going to do another one of our kind of walkthrough guides, right, where we go through a catalogue of Novitec parts and kind of explain what does what and why you would get something instead of the other and what various things do, and yeah, we'll just sort of go through it all and explain it. So we've already done the MC20, we've done the 812, and today we're going to do the F8. So you'll notice there's kind of a running theme here, which is we're going over the cars that are fitted with the GPF OPF, because this has been a real watershed moment in kind of exhaust tuning, because things are very different now, and the approach you need to have is much more technical, and it's really important that you as the consumer kind of understand why we're recommending something instead of something else. So yeah, we'll start as always by having a look at the actual kind of diagram of the exhaust itself, so that you can see what is in the car as standard, and then from there we can understand why we would change some stuff. So if we have a look, the first thing to talk about are the catalytic converters. So, essentially up here, you've got the manifolds which attach to the engine, and then they feed into these catalytic converters. Those have been on cars for years. So, with the 458, 360, I mean, anything semi-modern has these on them, and we're all very familiar with what they do, but these are usually 800 cell sport cats, meaning that the lattice within the cats has 800 cells per square inch. So they're very, very restrictive, and they kind of kill the sound quite a lot. Now, what makes the F8 different to anything that's come before it is, as I mentioned, the GPF. So the GPF are these guys right here, either side of the silencer. So, and we'll get to this further on, but basically, even if you do the rear silencer now, you're gonna have check engine warning lights that need to be dealt with, and that wasn't the case with the Pista, or the 488, or the 458, or the Speciale, or anything that's come before. This is totally unique. It's not unique, but it's new to the F8. So yeah, it's manifolds feeding into sport cats. Those then feed directly into the GPF. And basically when the valve is closed, it feeds the exhaust gas through this kind of central silencer, and then it comes out the back of the exhaust, and then when it is open, it bypasses the exhaust and just comes straight out through the GPF itself. So now that we've got a good understanding of the basics of how it all works, we'll go through the Novitec catalogue and we'll kind of go through bit by bit and explain what's what. So first thing that they offer is called the N-Tronic. So this is a power unit which basically piggybacks onto your ECU. So rather than plugging into the OBD port and doing a dedicated fuel and timing map and all that kind of stuff and changing the boost levels, this is basically the same thing. It just plugs into the car so it can be removed, and that's really trick. There are a couple of people offering this, but Novitec's is one of the most stable. It's also it's not super overboard, so I mean, what kind of figures are we talking? We're getting 787 out of the car with just this, so it's a solid increase over standard, but it's not something that's going to stress out the components of the engine. Now we get onto what they call the stages. Now this can be quite confusing, but it's actually very simple. So stage 1 is the N-Tronic just on its own. Stage 2 is the N-Tronic paired with an exhaust which has decap pipes. That's it. And with that, we're up to 802 horsepower. And then stage 3 is the power kit with an exhaust, but this time with sport catalysts. So that is 796. So it's a pretty marginal difference between the two. And again, we'll get to the benefits of one over the other shortly. Now, when it gets to the rear silencer, there are two options. They do valved and they do non-valved. Now, I've personally never understood why somebody would want the non-valved system. I mean, yes, it's all great to have the car being super loud the whole time, but without the resonator at the back of the car, it can lead to quite serious droning when you're particularly doing motorway miles, and that can be really problematic. So the car has valves as standard. To me, it makes sense to replace it with something that is like for like and does what it already did. So we would always recommend just the rear silencer with valves. We will of course supply the non-valve system to you, but we make it very clear it's going to be pretty hard to live with if the car is used regularly in any way. There's a couple of other options which, I mean, you can actually see it here. There's two metals that we can offer you. So we can either do steel or we can do Inconel, and then beyond that we can also do Inconel that has been gold plated. again, it's horses for courses. Personally, I love the steel stuff. I think it sounds really good. The Inconel obviously sounds fantastic as well, but there is a price premium to go with that, so then it just becomes an assessment of the value proposition. And then finally, there's the gold plating, which is obviously very reminiscent of the McLaren F1 engine bay and that kind of stuff. So yeah, we can offer any of those things. Personally, if it was me, I'd probably go steel. That's typically what we'd stock, but again, we can order you anything you want. Now comes the great, to decat or to not decat. Personally, for me, I would always do sport cats. For years, we recommended doing decats, but having spent more time with them, having sold lots more systems and getting lots more feedback from customers running them, we found that yes, there is a bit of a price increase when you go over to the sport cats. However, it actually makes the car again just a lot more usable. You're getting 95% of the sound that you're getting from the decats, but you're also going to clean up any kind of errant fuel smell that you might get from removing the cats. And then the next big thing is the F8 seems to be a car, as well as the Pista actually, and the SF90, it seems to be a car which is quite back pressure sensitive. So if it doesn't have the back pressure levels it needs, it will then give you a check engine warning light, and that's not something that the Tektronic down here is designed to deal with. And again, we'll speak about that in a second. So from a usability perspective, I think the sport cats are better, and then also just for the health of your car and keeping it happy and where it needs to be, we would recommend the sport cats. Beyond that, we've also got carbon tips. This is very simple. They just go in place of the originals. You can get them in gloss or matte carbon. And again, it's available in a 1x1 weave, which is the same as Ferrari, or a 2x2, which is this kind of offset here. Actually, this is really nice. So that's 2x2 carbon, where it's kind of the angle, and that's 1x1, where it's straight cut. So we usually try to match it to Ferrari, which is this one, 1x1. Now, the last two bits are, again, really simple. Tektronic. This is an OBD module that you plug in. It is designed to deal with any cat inefficiency errors, and then any errors pertaining to the gasoline particulate filter not working properly. So you pop that in, it searches for these error codes, clears them down. Beauty of it is it's completely unique to Novitec, and it's as far as I'm aware, the only exhaust system in the world for the F8 that you can plug on, enjoy, and then remove, and the car goes back to exactly how it was when it left the factory. No remapping, nothing silly like that, and that's really cool. Finally is the remote, which is the Switchtronic. Again, super simple, plug it in, open and close the valves, job's a good one. So, wheels. It looks like there's quite a confusing choice, but it's actually really, really simple. Novitec offers 3 different wheels, which are the NF8, the NF9, and the NF10. And those are both available in 2 sizes, or I'm sorry, all 3 of those are available in 2 sizes. You can have 20 front, 21 rear, or you can have 21 front, 22 rear. So, there are 6 options sort of before us, and that's what they are. To go into a little bit more detail, the NF8 is a lovely wheel. It is a 10-spoke design with a kind of canted sweep to it, I guess you'd almost call it. It looks really, really lovely. Each wheel is actually kind of unique to the corner, so that they all flow the same way. It's a nice wheel. It's not something we sell particularly regularly, but when we do sell them, they do look really, really, really nice. So you can't go wrong with that. The NF9, this is kind of more my speed, is a nice symmetrical wheel, 10-spoke. And as you can see, it's like super skeletonized. You can really nicely see the caliper and the brake disc and all that stuff. It just looks really, really good. And this is a really nice solution because it's just a normal 5-bolt fixture. So if you've got, like, say, titanium bolts from the factory or whatever, and you want to reuse them and show them off, this is probably the wheel to go for. However, the wheel that I would choose, and the wheel that we usually recommend, and to be honest, I think it is just the best, is the NF10. Now, the NF10 is exactly the same as the NF9, but you'll notice it's got what looks like a kind of center lock fixture on it. Now, that's actually just a cover. So it's like a star-shaped cover that you put on top, and then you can see underneath here we've got all of the bolt holes for the wheel lugs. So it's all of the ease and simplicity of a 5-bolt fixture, but with the looks of a center lock, and you don't have to have, like, as I always say, like a 7-foot torque wrench to get the wheels off if you need to. So yeah, great solution. In terms of colour, you know, there's such a wide range, you know, just to flick through some of them. This isn't even the whole range, but these are the transparent finishes. And then we also offer a load of kind of solid finishes, so that's the blacks and greys and satins, etc. Yeah, they're really, really nice, and you know, quite frankly, we could go all the way to something as kind of extreme as a denim blue finish if you were so inclined, but usually it's silvers, blacks, golds, maybe the odd white here or there. But yeah, really, really nice range of colours, looks fantastic as you can see on the car. And then kind of one of the last things to talk about, we've got suspension and carbon. Suspension, super simple. We've got spacers, which are 10mm, 15mm, 20mm. We'd usually recommend 5mm for the front, 10mm for the front and 15 for the rear. 20 is an option, but it's just quite aggressive, so we wouldn't recommend it. If you have ordered titanium wheel bolts for your car and you want spacers, they won't fit because the bolts are not the right length. So we would then be able to offer you, from the same supplier that makes them for Ferrari, the titanium wheel bolts from Novitec, which just have a nice kind of very subtle bit of Novitec branding on them. And then when it comes to the springs and suspension itself, two options, but really only one. There are the sport springs themselves, so we just swap them in for the springs that are on the car, adjust using the damper platforms and kind of compress the spring a little bit. And you know, the variable spring rate of these springs means that the ride won't be compromised. It's kind of designed to be under slightly more compression than the standard springs, so that you can have a lower car while enjoying the comfort of the ride. You know, bumpy road button still works and all that good stuff. And again, it's not about putting the car on the floor and making it look crazy. It's just about closing up the wheel arches and making it look a bit closer to the Ferrari marketing images. So if you go have a look, you'll see that all the cars that they use are lowered. So that's quite amusing. And yeah, we're just bringing it more in line with that. And then finally, there's the, you know, really this should just say lowering springs with aftermarket lift. That's what that is. It's, you know, exactly the same set of lowering springs, but they also have a hydraulic front lift. So if you didn't order one from the factory, or say you're buying a car that's the perfect spec, but doesn't have a lift, and that's something that you need, give us a call. It's quite interesting. So the lift raises by 20mm, and we'd usually drop the car by about 20mm. So what it means is that even though we are lowering the car and making it look a lot nicer, you are still gaining like an inch of clearance that you didn't have before with the lift up, and that will be in almost every case enough to get you in and out of whatever driveway or curb or whatever you're trying to navigate without scratching the front. So that's the suspension. And then the final bit to talk about is the aerodynamics. I mean, quite frankly, this just comes down to aesthetics and personal taste. I don't think I need to explain everything. You know, if I was to pick out a couple of my favorite parts, the one thing that I think is really, really good is this guy, the cover trunk lid, which very helpfully isn't loading. Oh no, there it was. So there's this huge bit of plastic just underneath the windscreen, and you cannot spec that in carbon fiber from the factory, but you can get it from Novitec, and we can get it in literally, so and here's another good example of the weave. So that's 2x2, and that's 1x1. So we can order it to literally exactly match the Ferrari carbon. So this is a really nice way of plugging up a huge bit of plastic on the front of the car that you cannot order in carbon from the factory. I mean, maybe if you're doing it like an Atelier or a tailor-made car or something, it would be, but certainly for standard cars, that's not an option. So that looks really, really good. Obviously, I really love this little insert. This is something I think you can spec from the factory, but Novitec's obviously slightly less expensive than, or significantly less expensive than Ferrari's carbon. And actually, you know, if you want to go full bore, this is quite a nice bit of kit. Either the Enlargo ducktail, which, you know, it's not a fixed wing spoiler, it's just a much nicer contour to the rear deck, or you could go for the rear spoiler lip. So those are kind of my picks. I think those are the ones that look really nice. And you know, that's kind of it. There's the reflectors as well, but again, you know, they're reflectors. You don't need me to tell you what they do. So yeah, that's the Novitec range. Hopefully you kind of understand why we would say certain things are, you know, kind of our recommendations, and maybe other things aren't. But you know, as always, if there is anything that I haven't answered or has confused anyone, just put it in the comments below, and I'll make sure that I get on there and answer them. As always, if you want to see more content like this, give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more. And as always, we will see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.